bit dizzy, but we can always share some disease. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to run. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome, guys. Miss Liz is back. That's right. We had an incredible afternoon show this afternoon. Check that out, Brad C. Anderson. Tonight, I have the incredible Paul Zohav in the house, and we're going to talk about marriage and communication. We're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about his tea, and his tea is yes and seems. That's right. We do not serve a beverage in this house. We serve words, storytelling, and we bring teaching, education, awareness to the table. So for everybody, you know how Miss Liz works. We get everybody over to YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, LinkedIn, all of those good platforms. Give those a like, subscribe, and follow, and get these tea times out, because I guarantee one tea time will resonate with someone out there. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and supporting Miss Liz throughout this season as well. We are coming almost to the end of the season, so stay tuned and keep checking out these tea times, because there are incredible guests that are lined up until the end of December, so check that out. So let's get started with disclaimer and then an intro, and then let's get Paul in here and let's spill some tea. And today's tea is yes and seems. That's right. It's a different type of tea. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may include sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of this discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly on my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Times. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your decision and wishes and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, I want to welcome everybody back to Tea Time, where honest conversations become the bridge back to connection. Tonight, we open the door to one of life's most important rooms, our relationships. Joining us is Paul Zohav, M.Ed., a seasoned relationship and communication coach with more than 30 years of experience supporting couples and families through moments of breakdown and breakthrough. Paul began his work as a domestic abuse counselor in Central Virginia, offering healing where trust had been shattered. Today, as the founder of Marriage and Communication Coaching in Tucson, Arizona, he guides couples through marriage coaching, prenatal counseling, parent-teen communication, and the painful reality of infidelity and divorce. Paul teaches that love is not just a feeling, it is a skill, one that can be learned, strengthened, and restored. His message is rooted in compassion, accountability, and practical communication that rebuilds safety, respect, and intimacy. So grab your cup and let's dig deep into this tea time as we welcome Paul Zohav to the table. Let me get Paul in here and let's spill some tea together. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to this tea time.
I look forward to it too, because relationship is something that I like to talk about.
Mhm.
So, Paul, let's get started with you as a young boy first, and then we'll get into the coaching relationships. Who was Paul as a young guy, and who's Paul now?
If I could characteristic, I have been committed to making a difference in the world for as long as I can remember. I typically would put my life where my mouth is. And that took me on a quite interesting journey. I just was unwilling to accept the world as it was presented to me. And I always looked to think outside the box. In fact, I'd say sometimes there's not a box I don't like to think outside of. And it helps because I'm in the Myers-Briggs world, I'm an intuitive, and I love the biggest answers I can think of. And I keep on generating new ones from time to time. I grew up in New York City, 75 years ago. Wow. Let's not say that.
So, Paul, in your time of 75 years, you've worked in this business for 30 years, but as you age wonderfully, I would have never guessed 75, but at 75, what have you learned about relationships?
Well, the first thought is that, we don't have an operating system for relationships, an OS for US. My parents were wonderful people. However, their models of operating system was from the 1930s. They were teenagers at the beginning of the 1930s, then they went to college. And they were the children of immigrants. And so we adopted a lot of the models of relationships from way back when. But now we're here a century later, and there's a whole brand new game. And we understand that children tend to figure out relationships by watching us. And sometimes that's a good idea, but often it's a tragic idea. For instance, domestic violence. I started out as a domestic violence counselor, and there are families with generations of alcohol abuse and drug abuse, and grandpa beat grandma, my father beat my mother, and it looks like I'm heading that way too. So there's a whole generational aspect. And after a year or two of creating classes for perpetrators of domestic violence, I had a moment where I said, how about I prevent it rather than treat it after the damage is done? And that began that search for what if present would make the difference. And along the way, I became a professional chaplain, hospital, community, and also hospice chaplain. So I've been looking at the world through God's ears and my ears, so to speak. And after moving to Tucson, Arizona, about 12 years ago, I created marriage and communication coaching, developing a model for communication applicable to anybody from home to work. I could rattle on for a bit more, but maybe you have a question by this point, Liz.
Well, what I want to do now, Paul, is I want to bring up the book that you sent me. I want to talk about that book. So I'm going to pop it up. So for my audio listeners that cannot see the cover, if you can just describe who's on it and how it came about and how the difference of writing it, because I've looked into it and I really like the style of the way that you wrote this book.
This is Marriage and Communication Recipes for Life. And out of my studies and experience, it's been very clear that 3 out of 4 people just are looking for directions. They are not interested in explanations. I mean, I am, that's my personality, but people just tell me what to do and I'll get the result I'm looking for. So this book is not a book of chapters, it's a book of recipes. And you can just follow the directions in the very first paragraph and get your cake. Only the cake is your life. For those who like to understand more, there's further materials, but the very first recipe, and every couple that comes to me gets this first, is the power of yes and. When we begin a sentence with yes, we're connected. I am listening, and I've heard them. When those elements are present, then we can say And let's handle this together. And when shall we talk? From work to most any place. How about breakfast? Yes. And how about scrambled eggs? Or perhaps you're a real estate agent and someone wants $100,000 house in $1 million neighborhood. And you go, yes, I'll show you everything that's available. Then you'll pick something that works for you. Selling cars, sales. Basically, your yes establishes a connection, an affinity that is the basis for pretty much any conversation. You really don't need to be in an argument longer than it takes to say, yes, let's take a break and start over again. Some people like to dramatize their unhappiness, but most people do not. And so whenever you have a breakdown in your connection, the first one that's noticed it gets to say, yes, this is important. When can we talk about this? Yes is the magic can opener of communication. And the word and is my favorite word because and opens up the future. I mean, yes, there's dogs and cats and brothers and sisters and peanut butter and jelly. But when you say and with a rising inflection, you're invoking thinking and thought. And you're creating the future in the moment. And you can use it pretty much anywhere in your life. I have a flat tire and I'm not feeling good today. And I didn't get the results I was looking for. And literally opens up a brand new future for us to fill in with by using A and D. And let's go to dinner. And where you want to go to? Let's find a new way to travel. And how should we do that? So basically, between a yes and an and, you have an access to extraordinary relationship and a future. And the other word that Liz mentioned earlier was the word seems. Well, it's important to understand that the world has no language. Birds don't sing, waves don't crash, and trees don't fall. Fall, crash, and sing are all words that human beings added to our experience of being alive. Something happens, and then we make up a word about it. So if we're talking like we are right now, inevitably anything we're saying is an interpretation, which is terrific news, by the way, because if you're locked into a interpretation, you can pick a new one, another interpretation that gives you access to more life. For example, and then Liz can ask a question or two. A couple came to me and he, about 67 years old, something like that. He was convinced, almost proud, I'm unfixable. He knew himself to be unfixable, which makes it kind of hard to be married to because not much flexibility with someone who's unfixable. And I said, how about we switch the script to I have things yet to learn? New interpretation. I have things left to learn. And all of a sudden, a brand new life showed up in a nanosecond. And she was thrilled because she could live with someone who had something left to learn, and very difficult to live with someone who knew they were unfixable. And we, in the work I do, we get to explore all the interpretations that cost us life, and we get to replace them with new interpretations that give us life. Liz, I can take this into a zillion directions. I'll let you help moderate this.
Well, I kind of chuckled, Paul, when you said peanut butter, because Brad talked about peanut butter in his books today. So it's just like, hey, this is how it works. The universe just puts my guests together and we're joined together with peanut butter and jelly, so.
Sure, that 2 slices of bread are not a sandwich unless there's something in between them.
Just like a relationship, right?
A couple is not, 2 individual people, 2 me's are not an us until they have an and. And when their and gets big enough, they have enough room for a child and they have a family. And that's why I call marriage and communication coaching, because with and you can have access to pretty much anything you want.
Yeah, because that's what I found. I found that there was 3 parts of marriage: you, me, and us.
Yes, and I like metaphors are important because metaphors are not the thing itself, but they are words an assemblage of words that give us access to something we cannot speak aloud of. And one of the things I distinguish is an us. People come to me as two individuals struggling with the relationship, perhaps, and their us is weak. They lack a lot of the skills and the insights and best practices that will allow us to help us navigate our lives together. Us, an invisible presence that is greater than the sum of its parts. And where does this us live? That lives in a bubble. The bubble, when we can envision ourselves, our marriages as a bubble, we then have a good sense of where our boundaries lie. We are inside the bubble. We are in charge of what's inside the bubble. And anything outside the bubble is not us. And we get to have a high integrity bubble that we don't let anything in unless we both agree that it's there. Because one of the major characteristics of a bubble is safety. Sometimes people talk about their relationships to strangers. Not safe. I can tell some horror stories, but there's just some. So we can ask the question, now that we have identified our marriage as existing within a bubble, that's where our us lives, we can then say, is what I'm about to do or say belong in our bubble or not? Now that we have bubbles, now we have an us and we have boundaries.
Yeah.
And so if the answer is yes, keep going. If the answer is no, don't do it. And if the answer is I don't know, we get to communicate with one another such that we agree whether this belongs in our bubble or not. So we have an operating system for marriage and relationships. We have a bubble and we have an us. And they aren't the thing itself, but when we use them as stepping stones to a reality, we can have a marriage that lasts a lifetime.
Well,
Seems is why we need that word. Seems lets us know that I'm not speaking the truth. We don't have to waste time arguing about competitive truths. A seems will get us, yes, let's talk about it. Where truth will get us a no, a but, and an argument. Seems leaves us open to discussion and communication, where truth leaves us vulnerable to altercation. Yes, Liz.
Well, we had a question that came in and it says, why is seem such a powerful tool for avoiding unnecessary conflict?
Well, since we are now aware that the world has no language and we human beings use language sometimes to our detriment, seems helps turn off the truth app. When I say something to you, I am aware that your mind is going, is it good? Is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? Do I agree or do I disagree? Automatically to validate what I'm saying, well, it's valid or not. And if what I say to you does not match what you believe, intend, or remember, or anticipate, we will stop listening and stop communicating, and we'll start arguing about whose truth is truer, whose reality is most real, and who's right and who's wrong. And we can avoid all of that with the word seems. Seems leaves us open to discussion. We can exchange points of view instead of being stuck on our own point of view. That's why seems is the third part of a magical opening for communication. Yes, and seems to me now the next part is we avoid words like always, every, never, and only.
Oh, okay.
Well, because when you say I always, we always, teenagers always, then we lose their listening because their truth app gets invoked. And they'll say, do I agree with that? Do I not agree with this? Is it right? Is it wrong? In our bubble, we want to maximize the amount of listening available. The more listening we have, the more likely it will be that we have communication. And always, every, nevers, and onlys distract the quality of our listening. And for that, we need the word tends to. 5-letter word. Seems to me will tend to leave us in communication. We'll bypass the minefield of distraction. So we have yes and, seems to me, we tend to, will open up the gates of communication. So these are the rules of the road, so to speak. How do we communicate inside our bubble? with each other, to our children if we have them. And these tools are equally valuable outside as well. But inside our bubble, we don't get hung up on things that sound like the truth. Well, it seems to me this might be a subject for us to talk about. Seems to me we bring up the past a lot. Seems to me that whenever we try to talk about this, we get into an argument. All those are communication openers, whereas the truth tends to shut it down. One more word we get to be responsible for, with this basic toolkit for communication, is avoiding the word you. As children, we heard, you sit down and eat your dinner. You clean your room. You do your homework. You turn off the TV. We have a diet of you-ishness from our preachers and teachers and coaches and communities, which leaves us as adults sensitive to hearing the word you. It evokes defensiveness and finger pointing. So the workaround for that is one of us. So when you put the four elements together, it seems to me that one of us tends to reliably opens up an opportunity to communicate. One of us. It's one of the easiest things to learn. Some of them more difficult, but we want to avoid the minefield of distraction. If you say, oh, well, you do this, I always do this. No, you do this. We will lose listening. We will lose communication, and we will lose our marriage. In the bubble, this is how we communicate. This is the rules. Of course, you can take it outside as well. But in our marriage, we always have communication. We avoid distraction. Yes, Anne, seems to me one of us tends to opens up the ball game.
Well, you have another question here for you for the yes. How does the yes and the technique shift emotional dynamic between couples? I don't think I'm saying that word right.
Well,
Dynamic.
Yeah. Yes means we're connected. I'm listening and I hear you. So, and it's also useful as a first aid for angry, upset, and irritation. People come to you, Liz, and say, Liz, you're a total fill in the blank. And you might try to defend and you might try to explain, which is not a good use of your time because they're not listening. Not listening. They're busy being angry, frustrated, and annoyed. And so any attempt to explain or defend is like going down a rabbit hole. So for that, you can say, yes, I hear you. That's a very important phrase. Yes, I hear you. How about we take some time? I'll make a cup of coffee and I'll listen to everything you have to say. Yes, I hear you. Let's take some time to do this together. Yes, I hear you. When's the best time for us to talk? Yes, I hear you is the key phrase that opens up. Well, people who are angry might have to say, yes, I hear you a few times before they slow down long enough to listen and to be responsible. And I'm speaking to our female partners mostly. If you don't feel safe, don't do this. If you don't feel safe, try one yes and I hear you. But if that doesn't produce any results and you're not feeling uncertain and scared or fearful, take a time out, leave, shut it down. I want to sound like I'm picking on females, but men generally, for good or for ill, think they're safe. Sorry. It's kind of I'll handle it. It's no big deal. If something happens, I'll handle it. But most men are not aware of how unsafe most of our female partners feel. It seems to me we could put a pin any place on planet Earth, and you'll find women who assign a good amount of their attention to their safety and trust. And if us guys don't know how to listen and communicate, and they don't trust us, and they don't marry us. So that's another subject we can broach at another time. But any men listening, just realize that the person next to you spends a lot of her attention on being safe.
So, Paul, how did your early work as a domestic abuse counselor shape your approach into today's marriage and communication coaching?
Well, one thing I learned is that at the time I called it emotional literacy.
Okay.
Most men had one word for being upset. Angry. If they're upset, they're angry. If they're hurt, they're angry. If they're annoyed, they're angry. If they're frustrated, they're angry. So it's been said that if all you have is a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. And so in my early years, I taught them, what are the signs that you're starting to lose control? For me, I get angry, my shoulders start to rise. And my thinking starts to get foggy. And I'm not a good listener. So I taught them in the class, when you see those signs, take a break. Get out before you go all the way to angry. And we know how that turns out because you're here. It's amazingly simple. 3-letter words. Yes, and, seems, and tends to. We want to have as much listening as possible so that we can use it to communicate.
And you also gave me you gave me the words get to living and got to living.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little bit about that, get to living and got to living, because what's the difference?
Well, if we listen to the language we are immersed in, we'll hear, I have to, I need to, I should, and I must. I've got to. Republicans need to, Democrats have to, as a nation we should, and the president wants to. And if we listen a little carefully, you'll hear, or else. I have to, or else. I need to go shopping, or else. I have to go to work, or else. We have to get going, or else. Sometimes we even say the word or else, but mostly it's kind of concealed. And when we listen, you'll notice that you're not free. Your life is given by obligations and circumstances. You have to, you need to, and you should, and you must. You get stuck. And the way out is really simple. When you swap an O for an E, you get a get to life. That's where the fun is. In the get to life, you have choice. You're the driver. You have opportunity and possibility, and you can change your mind for no consequences because there's nowhere else. So one of the things I guide my couples, if from now on, when someone says, we have to get going, you say, have to? We get to get going. We literally bootstrap us into a whole new world just by need to, should, have to, must, and just change them to get to. I mean, in fact, Liz, what are some of the things you may have historically said about I have to, feed, I must? We all got them. What are some of your routines that you can recall? That you say, well,
I must get it done.
And now
I must find a way.
And now you get to get it done.
I see.
Just that little tiny paradigm shift gives you a brand new world, because things will get done. People will go to work. You'll get to where you're going on when you're traveling. But which is easier, have to go to shopping or get to go shopping?
Well, get to go shopping is a lot more fun.
You have to. It's almost like you're forcing an outcome on your life. I have to. I have no choice. I have to. I need to, and I should. I have a major peeve with the word should, because should means there was something I should have done, and it cuts out all possibility. When you say could, we could do this, the future opens up. Should brings in something from the past. I should have done different. As if there was another world in which you were different and you should have done differently, and you get different results. Should. Let's change it to could. Again, all I did was swap a SH for a C, and you have a life that's you are at the source of your life. We could do it this way. We could do it that way. We could do it the other way. But should takes a bite out of ourselves. There's just something really uncomfortable by shoulding on ourselves.
Well, should is kind of like a regret, right? Kind of like living like, oh, I should have done that.
You should do it this way, says someone. All right. But you could say, equally, you could say, you could do it this way. You can have a conversation.
With the word could, you're offering a solution. Like you're giving them hope. where you say the word should, you're kind of defeating the purpose, right?
Becoming kind of critical and judgmental. Well, you should do it this way. There's all ways we can use language and tone. It has been a little sidebar. A professor named, I think it was Marhabian, I'm not quite sure I get that right. He says that communication is 7% the words you use, 38% how you say those words, and 55% body language. Consider, 38% is the tone, intonation, pronunciation, enunciation. And I'm still in the process of training myself to use my hands to talk, because you can avoid a lot of miscommunication if you say, well, we can do it this way, or we can do it this way.
Well, this kind of brings like hope, right?
Right. One person on podcast says you can actually put your hands beneath the surface of your desk and move your hands at will, and your face will follow your hands. Right? Put your hands beneath your, so this is really a great thing. And my hands are waving, and all of a sudden my face is animated, and I sound and feel alive because I'm beginning to use my body as well. It was a unfortunate artifact of the Victorian era, is that children literally had to be seen and not heard, and they were punished if they dared say anything in the presence of an adult. That's where the phrase comes from. Children should be seen and not heard. It comes from a Victorian era where children are literally forbidden to say anything. So children should be seen and not heard. And so they learn to sit with their hands folded in their desk, in their laps, quietly waiting for perhaps some moment when they could say anything. My mother told me when she was in elementary school, they would put rubber bands around children's hands to keep them from using them.
Wow.
She went to the elementary schools in the end of the 20s, and children were taught to sit with their hands folded. That was what she grew up with. So I encourage people to add body language, because it's 55% of communication. And you can say the same thing with your hands and be more likely to be understood. I think we should do this plan. Or I think this offers a lot of possibility for our plan. And you don't have to argue about what you meant, because it sounded and looked like it, what you were saying.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Mediterranean couples, Italians, and their hands are always moving. But some of us, the Northern European variety, we're just, bachelor farmers.
Our hands are stuck to the sides because I grew up with that saying, be seen but not heard, and it took me years to find my voice because I was always be seen but not heard. So when I spoke, I always felt like I was at fault. It took many years for me to understand that my voice was okay to be heard.
There's all kinds of historical mischief. We all are familiar with the phrase, it's a rule of thumb, which comes from some place in previous centuries where a man was not allowed to beat his wife with a stick wider than his thumb. Think about this. Rule of thumb. It was probably feminism of the 17th century. Who knows? Otherwise they could do any kinds of mischief. But a man was then forgiven to beat his wife with a stick wider than the width of his thumb. And that phrase is still around till today. There's a lot of historical language. In the domestic violence world, I just pointed this out today. Remember, because this is the day, if you go away, this is the day that I die. Remember the rock and roll song? You say you're going to leave, but that's a lie, because that'll be the day that I die. And if you look a little closely, you'll hear that she becomes responsible for his survival. If you want to leave, if you leave, I will die. So don't leave. It's a manipulation that turned into a rock song. I love language, in case you hadn't noticed. And if you look, some of the lyrics of the songs that were popular at one time, it can be horrifying. This is what we call music. That'll be the day that I die.
Yeah.
Listen to the lyrics of these words that we hear on Top Something Radio.
I always say it, Paul, like when I listen to a song, it's the lyrics that grab me. It's
Mm,
the words that you're using. The beat and the sound and the harmony afterwards is a side note, but the words that you're using in those lyrics
mhm.
is your story that you're telling, because lyrics is a form of storytelling as well. Then the harmony comes in, and that's where the added, it's almost like the bubble, right? It's who you sharing your bubble with.
Mm. As a matter of fact, we get to be very careful that not only we have a bubble of us, we have the bubble of us as individuals. You have your me bubble inside the us bubble. If you don't nourish yourself, you're not much good to us. And women, not only women, have to sacrifice their well-being for the sake of us. They become people pleasers and other things of that ilk. And after a while, they forgot. I used to do art, but I don't do that anymore. I used to like to dance. I used to like to crochet. But since they're busy devoting their time to the us, they forget their me. And the first session, I said, what are your pastimes? Whatever it is, make time for that.
I want to get into a topic that I haven't had very much on Tea Time, Paul, and that's infidelity and cheating. I have a
Mm,
lot of listeners in baby boomers and that, and we've all, most of us have experienced some form of infidelity or cheating or mistreatment. So let's talk a little bit about that, Paul.
Well, the first thing for us to understand is that infidelity is a symptom. It's not a cause. It's a symptom. And once we ask the right question is, what it is a symptom of? Because that's where we go to work. We don't want to play whack-a-mole with the symptoms. We want to get at the cause. And two of the biggest causes we may find out can be found in Gary Chapman's book, The Five Love Languages, which many of us have heard. If not, get a copy. It's brilliant because people feel loved in slightly different ways, Gary Chapman teaches. For some people, there's gifts and there's quality time and acts of service and words of affirmation and there's physical touch. And he says we have all five love languages, but the significance can vary widely from one person to another. For example, my spouse loves to change the sheets on a weekly basis. On my own, I might take an extra week or two before I change the sheets. And certainly when I was younger, it would go, oh, that's clean enough. However, since I know that her main love languages is words of acts of service, that's one of the love languages. My us, since I've educated our us, jumps in and says, speak her love language. She will feel loved by you. You'll expressing love to her. And at the end of the day, we are more together. So people get to learn their love languages. And by the way, when she says, thank you for stripping the bed, I feel loved because words of affirmation and appreciation are my love language. It can be easy as learning the language that leaves us most loved and connected. And it has happened. A guy calls me up one day and says, there's something wrong with my wife. And I'm listening. He says, well, it turns out that he's busy paying attention to business while she's looking for someone to play with, someone to listen. And he kept on declining her invitation. Let's go to the gym. Let's go out to eat. Let's do this. Let's do that, which led her to be vulnerable to find someone else to play with, which he noticed and called me up. So a lot of the mischief of infidelity shows up in simply misloving one another, being out of sync. People also, there's the love language of physical touch. And the most useful word there is language. Sex and intimacy are dialects of a much larger language. And there's an article which I give to called the Importance of Being Held. And you find out that the rest of the dialogue has to do with a lot of hugs. It balances out the nervous system. It allows people, that the researchers have found that the average hug Length of a hug between two people is 3 seconds. 3 seconds. And but when a hug lasts for 20 seconds, there's a therapeutic effect on body and mind. Relax, feel safe, calm. So the first thing, and it comes up in the first session, when you come home, hug. You want to transform life out there to life in here. A nice long hug with your children, if they're there, will ground you. No matter how bad a day you had, balance out the nervous system. The importance of being held. You can find that article online. And infidelity shows up when people who like to be hugged aren't hugged. People who like to be appreciated are not being appreciated. And the guy who was busy doing his business thought he was acts of service. I take care of this. I take care of that. Can't you see how much I love you? But she couldn't hear that because she wanted to be appreciated and have quality time. So one of the symptoms of infidelity comes from just not knowing how to love them and them not knowing how to speak your love languages. The other element, we got time yet, I send people to 16personalities.com.
Okay.
16personalities.com. And you'll take a quiz there without overthinking the questions, I point out, because there's people like me, I can find 3 right answers in a multiple choice. Don't do that. Go to 16personalities.com, take the quiz, you'll get a report. And from that report, you will learn how differently people process life. For example, some people are introverts and some people are extroverts. Introverts don't appreciate much of a social life. I spend 90% of my time inside the 4 walls of my house. I am self-generating. And when my spouse and I go out to dinner with other people of our generation, sometimes it's so loud that I have to leave the room and come back in 50 minutes later. As an introvert. One person, she was an introvert, and she has her book, cat, music, internet, cable, Zoom, and her garden. And she can completely live her life. She probably works out virtually from home now. But then there are people who are social. They get energy from social interactions. They have a lot of friends. They like to spend time with friends. And they come home with more energy than when they left because they got energy from social interaction. One person was here, 99% extrovert, who sings in a rock band. Heavy metal rock band. Go figure. I don't get that. That's not my generation.
I'm a classic country girl.
Jefferson Airplane. Joni Mitchell. Yay. But he was an extrovert, and he just loves the energy from being out there in front of people singing. And it's important. Like one couple, they were 24 years old, both of them, and she was very extroverted. He was very introverted. And she said, "Come meet all my friends. I want to show you off to all my friends. We're in a relationship." And he's going, But now they have a solution. With 2 cars, she goes and hangs out with her friends for an hour. He shows up for about an hour and goes home. So it's not an either or, it's an and life. Once you know the rules of the road. If you're married to an extrovert, you just expect that they'll want time to spend with their friends. And they know you're an introvert, you probably come home and chill to regain some of the energy you put out over the course of the day. I or E. But then there's N or S. And S are sensors, also observant. They follow policies and procedures and rules and regulations, manuals and recipes. They're focused on how to do it. Like my book, Marriage and Communication Recipes for Life, is a how-to manual. They do not particularly like long explanations because they just want how to. And then those of us who are like intuitives, which is like me, perhaps you, we love the biggest answer we can come up with because we're committed to a world that works for everybody, and we're continually in an inquiry. What is present would make the difference? And I've done since I'm as far as back as I can remember. And so an example, an illustration of how this can work. It's an old joke where mother and daughter are making brisket together. And the daughter notices that mom is cutting off the ends of the brisket. And the daughter, being intuitive, wants, Mom, why do you cut off the ends of the brisket? And the mother said, well, that's why I learned it from my mother, because she follows recipes. Let's go ask Grandma. Grandma, why do you cut off the ends of the brisket? Grandma said, well, the pot was too small. So mom just wanted to know how to. The daughter wanted to know why that way. And my mother was always frustrated. My grandmother would try to write down a recipe and always leave something out. So we get to be aware that there are people like, well, for instance, my spouse shops with a shopping list. She wouldn't go shopping without a shopping list. She wouldn't go shopping without a shopping list. And she's got it, get it, gone. I am into the experience, the exploration, and the joy of shopping, which takes longer, but it's a lot more fun. I go shopping for fun. And there have been times when our shopping list was long enough that we would go to Costco with 2 shopping carts. She's free to accomplish the list. And I'm free to explore. And, oh, that chicken looks really good. We'll have that for dinner instead tonight.
And you get free samples as well.
And you get samples as well. So I'm into like, oh, it's on sale. 2 pounds of strawberries for a cheap price with new product. And Costco is probably really good for people like me because they always have something new.
Absolutely.
I love it. But my spouse has got to get it gone. She'll call me from the other end of Costco saying, I'm complete. I'll meet you at the checkout stand. I say, yes, I'll be there in 5 minutes. It's not either or, it's an and. I'll choose a restaurant that she likes. She'll choose a restaurant. It's not about the food, it's about the quality time, my love language, that we'll have together. So essentially, with a robust us, we have enough for everybody. When we grow our us, we have access to extraordinary vistas of life. And for those who are younger than we are, when the us is big enough, that's when you had children. People say, is this a time for us to have children? The answer is grow your us. The moment will arrive when you can bring in children to the world. To bring a child into the world before our us, well, there's a lot of bad movies on TV when that happens, right? A lot of domestic abuse and violence and other misbehavior. So grow your us, and the world is yours. Us, living inside your bubble, with an operating system like yes, and, seems, got to, get to, and a number of other things. Life inside of five mess sessions of about an hour and a half. You'll make it to your 50th wedding anniversary, or you'll know with no regrets why not. Sometimes it's a not, but you always wonder, well, should I have done this or should I have done that? Well, once you go through this process, not only do you learn all these skills, insights, and best practices, but you'll find a way back to each other or wholeheartedly moving different directions.
Well, when you wrote your book and you wrote it like a recipe book, and I like the flow of it because it's different, and I like different. I'm that kind of girl that just likes different. When you wrote this book, did your wife help you write the book?
Not directly, but I learned a lot about marriages by being married to her. For example, not too long ago, we figured out that when she says the word now, and I say the word now, it's not the same thing. She says, the dog's on the leash, the coat's on my back. You said you wanted to leave. Let's get going, says she. And I'm still like thinking things out and going to the bathroom and grabbing a snack or whatever it is. So how do we handle that? Well, she says, we're leaving in 15 minutes. Be ready. That's how easy it is. Once you're aware of each other's personalities. To go back to the Myers-Briggs, there are people who think and analyze first, and people who tend to feel first, broadly speaking. For those of us who are aware of there are people who, and I'm one of them, And there's a percentage of strength for all these letters, by the way. Something happens. I don't stop to feel for it first. I stop to think about it first. And many of us thinkers, letter T, will marry a feeler. And we're attracted to people who have a broader spectrum of color to live their lives. We're kind of intellectually, cognitively, and logically oriented, looking for solutions and processes and procedures and plans. So we're attracted to that bright person. Oh, they got something I want, as they get together, but then they would get married and they kind of forget about it. It has happened that sometimes a thinker will try to argue their feeler partners out of their feelings. Why do you feel that way? It's only a yes or no question. What's the big deal? And your feeler spouse feels like you don't care about her or their feelings. And your relationship start going down the rabbit hole. T or F at a percentage. The last letter pair, before I forget, is a J or a P, judger or perceiver. And I don't know why they call it that, but there are people who are highly organized. They like to know as much as possible, get things out of the way as soon as possible for them to feel confident and safe. My spouse likes to park the trunk before we leave in the nighttime. Once I said, listen, we can pack the truck at 6:30 in the morning. What's the big deal? But I know that if we pack the trunk at 10 o'clock at night, she, not a morning person, I will admit, will just get up, throw clothes on, get in the car, and I drive away. She has a shopping list. When I say, let's go somewhere, I don't do that anymore. I'll say, let's go to the park. And she knows shoes or no shoes, hat or no hat, sunscreen or no sunscreen. Can we take the dog? Is there a patio we can go to lunch together with the dog? Because the more she knows, the happier she is to have quality time with me. So once you're aware of how to love them in their love language and how to speak into their world, life happens. You can't say anything to anybody unless you know who's listening and how they listen.
So, Paul, what was your favorite recipe in this book?
It really is yes, ands, and seems. It's the opener. And I added tends to, it got more exciting because we're not stuck. We're free. Yes, and it seems to me we tend to. And I'm currently repurposing the book for teenagers. I told an AI Claude place, just take out every recipe and reformat it for a 16-year-old with a 5th grade reading level. So I want teenagers, and I want school principals and social workers and to put communication skills into high school. They don't know. It's always concerned me that teenagers don't, there are times when they should say no, they don't know how. They say yes when they mean to say no, but they want to be popular, they want to be accepted, they want to belong, they want to be in love, and their bodies are biologically saying something else. And their friend comes up with a terrifically bad 16-year-old idea, and they know they don't want to do it. So now they get to say, yes, and I hear you. It's not good for me today. Let's do something else. That's how you say yes by saying no, or the other way around. That's how you say no by saying yes. Yes, I hear you. There's the magic word. And I'd rather do something else. Not just children, not just teenagers, but us as adults. Get into situations where you have to trade a piece of ourselves for the sake of a contract or a relationship or something. Don't do that. It's a terrible strategy to exchange pieces of you for the sake of something else. Don't do that. It's a longer conversation, but I want teenagers. I'm writing the dear teenager who's about to read this book. Language is your superpower. The words you use will give you your life. You can be a no person or a yes person. And it's up to you because language is your superpower. I'm still working that one. But by the end of the year, we'll have a teenager relationship with communication skills. We're working on the cover right now. And I'm developing businesses. Business and communication, a manual for workplace collaboration. Same basic toolkit, only contextualized for the environment. And maybe we're close to our hour, so maybe I should. I have more things to say, so you can find me at marriageandcommunication.com. I help people all over the world, and here in Tucson. I promise you, in 5 sessions, it'll be money well spent, and you'll have a life. Because divorce is expensive, coaching is cheap. Try that first.
So, Paul, do you have any workshops or any new books? Like you said, you're working on the team book, but do you have any other books that are coming out soon? Or?
Well, the business version, because a team at work is not that different from our family at home, right? I really emphasize the role of the team leader because they get to be aware of the ROL, return on life, of all the people that do the work. Return on investment is fine. But when you blend it with return on life, you might want to know whether they're there for a paycheck or because they're aligned with the mission of the company. And most of us will fall somewhere in between. But if they're just there for a paycheck, showing up because they have to, need to, should, and must, it'll impact your productivity and your performance of your work. So that'll be emphasizing the role of managing the space of the team. With the same skills, yes, ands, and seams, and honoring and respecting anybody with any personality type to blend it into a team that is extraordinary.
Paul, I have a question for you. What
Please.
is a communication myth you wish everyone would stop believing today?
Say this again.
A communication myth you wish everyone would stop believing
Myth.
today.
Oh, well, people think of love as a thing when love is an experience. Think about that. Under certain circumstances, listening, honor, respect, love spontaneously is the experience of a marriage. And people say, well, I love you, I'm in love with you. And it's almost like there's a store there, you can buy a pound of love. But love isn't a thing, it's an experience. And once we know that, then we can take the actions, the ways of being and acting that allow us to wind up with experiencing of love. It's not a thing, it's an experience. When you do it right, you get it.
And what's one phrase that couples should be using? Not should, could be using. Let's use. I got the good. See, I caught myself. Could be using.
Rain and space falls mainly on the plain. Those of us remember My Fair Lady. Yes, I hear you. But take it from there. Whenever your us begins to be distracted or just distorted, the first person that notices, yes, let's take some time on this. You don't have to be down the rabbit hole longer than it takes to say yes. Yes. Yes.
See, I caught myself. I said the word should, and then I caught myself with the could. Yeah. See, I learned as I was listening tonight on tonight's tea time. So, Paul, any final messages that you'd like to leave with the listeners out there? And then I'll wrap it up.
What I do isn't really counseling. It is really coaching. Some counselors hang on to couples for like months and months and months, and they get what they get. But you will learn the skills. You'll have a dashboard for marriage. Skills, insights, and best practices. And at the end of the day, your us is very comfortable in your bubble. It's easy. It is not hard. Save time. Yes, seems to me one of us tends to. And you're on your way to communication.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. It was a pleasure having you on Tea Time. I'm just going to do a wrap up of what we did tonight. What a sincere and grounding conversation. Paul, thank you for reminding us that strong relationships are not built on perfection. They are built on honesty, courage, and communication. You showed us that healing is possible even after betrayal, misunderstanding, or seasons of distance. Tonight's Tea Time reminded us that forgiveness is not forgetting. It is choosing freedom. That connection is not automatic. It is intentional. That love grows when both people are willing to listen, learn, and lead with humility. To everyone listening, may you lead this space encouraged to speak with kindness, to listen with presence, and to love with patience. Whether you are rebuilding, recommitting, or simply learning, your relationship is worth the effort. Until we meet again, keep choosing communication over silence and healing over habit. And I'll see everybody tomorrow for a special tea time with a surprise guest. So thank you guys all for tuning in.
You can find me at marriageandcommunication.com, and I can help pretty much anybody anywhere they are in their life. I look forward to meeting all of you.
Thank you so much, Paul.